Hi everyone, it's Ren here. I hope you're doing well, guys. Welcome to my room. I'm very happy to see you here today. I hope you're well. Well, it is time for a second episode of the Practical INFJ. How about that? It seems that my outfit for this podcast or this series is becoming pretty obvious now. It might appear as if the hat is the essential article of clothing here. Might make me look a little bit silly, although it is a kind of cold today and it keeps me warm, but also mostly its use is to hide my horribly unruly hair. I badly need a hairdresser and I've been procrastinating, but obviously this is not what I want to talk about today. Let's talk about how INFJs, fellow INFJs, lovely INFJs can do well at school and in college. I think maybe my emphasis will be a little bit more on college, but maybe not. Maybe it will be a bit of a 50-50. In general, when you're in an education system and everything revolves around whether or not to go for the university system. I believe that in the United States, people are asking themselves more and more whether it's worth it. Before that, how about you take a look at this beautiful piece of art? Oh, that is the least modest thing I've ever said, but I was talking about the cover art, which was not done by me, for the Ecstatic Soul, a book on the INFJ type that, if you have not gotten it, maybe you should consider it. It's available for less than $10 in the description box below at all the Amazon links. Less than $10, ebook or paperback format. You have any questions, you let me know. Essentially, if you're familiar with the INFJ type, but you feel like you're getting diminishing returns from online articles, this is the next one to get. Exploration of the INFJ consciousness and existential challenges. Now, the question of education and being in the school system or university system is an interesting one, because obviously people have highly individual reactions to it, and at the same time this comes at an age where we tend to feel a bit more pressured to be like the others, and that happens regardless of type. But nevertheless, I strongly suspect that type is already influencing us and disposing us to be more or less exposed to peer pressure and things like that. And it strikes me that INFJs tend to be, on average, rather insecure about their intelligence. And when I say insecure, I mean not so much that they would get defensive if someone was to challenge their intelligence, because I don't think that actually happens in this way, at least not most of the time. What happens is that they'll be inclined to agree, unfortunately. They'll be inclined to agree that they're really nothing special. And this, if you pay attention to online communities, surely there are distortions when people are online and hiding behind their screens and so on. But you'll notice that doesn't really happen with, if we take the N types, just because it's a category I'm slightly more familiar with, you notice that it's not a problem for ENTPs, INTPs, INTJs, for instance, or ENTJs. Types that correlate with intelligence just, pretty much the same as INFJs and INFPs do. Somehow INFJs and INFPs tend to be a bit more either apologetic or just very skeptical about their own intelligence, which is a fascinating thing to me. Now, when it comes to the INFP, I think it's a slightly different matter, which I won't dwell on here. I think that the INFPs actually, in their own way, they're very, very confident and they're very trusting of their ability to be either, creative in a broad sense, their own selves in a broad sense, different from other people in their own way. This might not be achieved through a maximization of the intelligence factor or self-perception, but it's something that they generally manage, and I think that the INFJ is, as far as I've seen, they're the worst off, because they don't have the automatic ability to rest within their individuality like INFPs do. In some ways, they're closer to the thinkers when it comes to things like the educational system, but at the same time, they don't have the perks of being a thinker, and there is a tendency to be perceived as the empathic one, as the kind one, as the thoughtful one, as the wise one, but not as the smart one. And when you are in a university system, or when you are in a college or school system, well, you're graded. Empathy is not graded. Wisdom is actually not graded. Never mind well defined. This will be the topic of a future video, the whole shtick about wisdom. If you notice, the qualities of the psyche are not very well defined. The qualities of the intellect are well defined, at least from the viewpoint of the school and university system. And the question is, will an INFJ want to let the thinkers win the day, just have it their own way and have a system that more or less suits them, or at least that they can make rational sense of, or do they want to adapt? Well, I should hope that they would want to adapt and get equipped to the same extent to trust their abilities more, which are, like I said, pretty much equal in terms of IQ as the abilities of the NT types, but only lacking in this sense of confidence. How does this manifest at school and in university, as far as I've seen? So some of the symptoms of that lack of confidence. So prior to choosing to go to university, one of the ways in which it manifests is that, like, an INFJ might secretly harbor the desire to pursue a particular path of study, which might be a demanding one in terms of the grade it requires, or in terms of the course, in terms of the coursework, in terms of just how many hours you have to put in, or like the caliber of people that you would be on the course with. This could be any number of things. Could be STEM, could be psychology, could be medicine, number of things. So I think that the INFJ will be tempted to opt out of that because they will not feel that they are up to it. I think that in the US, this comes in conjunction with worries about how much money would have to be spent on education if the return is not guaranteed. So, well, that's the first obstacle. Now, supposing that the INFJ is on a course, they'll experience possibly a different issue. So they've made the step to be on the course, and I think that's great because, like I said, the impulse to decide to opt out, to not give yourself the chance of doing what you want, is something you'll regret all your life because you won't get many more opportunities to do it. You can do it and change your mind and do something else. I mean, you could do it well when you're older, and my video on bad faith really points that direction, but it's harder. So while you're still young, just try to do what you want. This is an opportunity that you should not squander, and you have the ability to do it. So let's say that, yes, like the INFJ is in college. What I've observed is that it's more visible in school when the INFJ is a bit less mature, but it can still be noticed, glimpses of it can still be seen in college, is that an INFJ will tend to assume that they are middling, that they're never among the more brilliant, that they try to work hard, but again, they don't really believe in themselves as much as others will. And they don't give themselves the means to do so. And sometimes they don't even give themselves the means to actually achieve, top grades, for example. And there are reasons for this that I'll explore in a second. So this may lead them to do maybe a bachelor's degree and then stop. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of INFJs stopped there, didn't do a master's, didn't do a PhD, even if, for some of them at least, they would have liked to do that. And their intuitions told them to do that. So why didn't they do it? I think we're brought back to the existential difficulties that arise through having an IFE as the top two functions, the main two functions. Because as usual, the singularity of an I, the intuitive singularity of an I, the abstract symbolism of an I, comes into conflict, or can come into conflict, with the inherent and intrinsic desire of universality and group belongingness that comes with FE. FE will pat you on the shoulder when you're feeling insecure. FE will pat you on the shoulder when you're feeling like you're not up to scratch, usually for slightly biased reasons, because you're slightly biased to thinking a bit less of yourself than more of yourself. FE will pat you on the shoulder because FE will tell you, well, you can merge within the group. You can just be in that middle. You know, being in the middle in terms of the grades, for example, is a metaphor also for being in the middle of a group where you're safe. You're not standing out, because standing out means being a little bit more uncovered. Not being afraid to be like, yeah, you know, I really trust in my abilities and I want to do the best. And I will give myself the means of getting the best because I know I can do it. And to not feel like you have to justify yourself for it. It's safer to be in the middle. Again, in school, that's more pronounced because, you know, school kid is more likely to feel vulnerable and to like the idea of being within the mass. So FE will comfort you, but FE will also limit you if you allow yourself to be evasive, you know, to use a term that you probably should be quite familiar with by now. FE will allow you to dissolve within the mass by not giving yourself the opportunity to exploit your full potential if you let FE rule the day. So it will be behaviorally and socially comforting, but existentially will leave you starved. And leading to all the questions I get all the time, you know, on my YouTube, by email. I mean, patterns seem clear to me. So what's important is, and that will be my last few minutes of serious direct advice or suggestions. I deeply believe in those, and they also come from practical lived experience. Trust in your originality, and trust in the originality of your ideas from school onwards, and always stick to it. When I say trust in your originality, I don't necessarily mean, guys, you know, you are geniuses and you should all follow exactly, you know, what your amazing insights tell you. Now, that's not what I mean. I mean that there is an originality that necessarily comes from the singularity of your dominant function. Your dominant function is not FE, your dominant function is NI. Always remember, your dominant function is NI, and because it is your dominant function, it is actually the key to your existential satisfaction, in combination and in tandem with the other functions. But the other functions are working with NI. They're not having NI work for them. So NI is really the key. NI makes your approach to things, your vision in a broad term, your approach to things, how you would interpret a literary text when you're in school, or how you approach philosophy and even science, how you resolve a problem, how you study languages. You're going to have some methods, some ideas that are a little bit off the beaten path. And school tends to, and it's not necessarily by anyone's design, it's in the nature of the institution called school. Institutions tend to create this peer pressure, invisible peer pressure effects, kind of flattening individuals together. The FE sensitivity that you have is likely to lead you to try to erase that singularity because it makes you feel vulnerable. Maybe you're afraid of getting a bad grade, for example. You're afraid that, no, this can't be right. I have a strong intuition that this is where I want to go in terms of this particular paper, but this can't be right. Go for it. Don't opt for the middle way. Don't opt for the safe answer that you think or you know will work because, you know, it's the mediocre way, it's the middle way. If you have something more risky in mind, an idea, something creative, something that you think is expressive of your best potential at that moment, and even if the teacher doesn't reward you for it in the immediate moment, stick to it. Cultivate this idea that you can express your deep thoughts articulately, because you can usually express the thoughts quite articulately. Get used to that idea from a young age. Cultivate that idea. And usually once you start developing the habit of doing this, it will continue being the case in college. And so when you start college, then the individuality of your approach year after year will be more and more rewarded until you come to a stage, perhaps maybe some of you in my audience will one day do a PhD. Maybe some have, but if I address myself for a second to those who have not yet but might, that's the point where the singularity of your ideas and the originality of your approach will be key to the successful receipt of the PhD degree. So always think in terms of, you see my face is being illuminated by the evening light. This is bringing some strange solemnity to my discourse, but what I mean is it's important to trust your intuition, not just in the vague sense of, oh, trust your gut feeling about someone, but also trust your intuition when you're in any situation in life, including when you're dealing with a school paper or school work, university work, your choice of what you want to do in university, your choice of career. Always trust that this is, trust your intuition about what you want to do, and don't let other people or your own perceptions of what other people might think convince you otherwise. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Consider subscribing, drop me a like, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.